What's up, guys? It's Parallax Abstraction, and welcome to PXA Peeks at Riptale. So you may notice my commentary sounds a little bit different at the moment. I'm actually in temporary accommodations while my house is initially on the market. I'm actually back in my mom's basement, if you can believe it. Yes, indeed. So I'm trying not to talk quite as loud because things are a little more echoey down here. I'm in a basement with a cement floor and no carpets, so just so you guys know, if I sound a little bit different, that's why. But I am trying to get through my video backlog because I got my rig here with me for a couple of weeks, and this is a game that I got approached about some time ago, actually, when it was in beta. And I said, yeah, I'm interested in talking about this, but we'll wait until it comes out. And while it's out now, this comes to us from a tiny little team in Finland called Super God, and this is a relatively inexpensive, very combat-heavy game with a. It doesn't really have much of a story to it. I can, at least as far as I can tell, but you can see here that it's got a rather striking black and white art style. Reminds me a little bit, actually, of something like Downwell or something like that. So I'm walking through the tutorial here. I love this tutorial. It's super simple. It's super quick. You just go left to right, and it's like, hey, here's how the basics go, just so you know. And kind of gives you a little bit of an idea here of how this works. Yeah, the aesthetic of this game, both in terms of its look and also when you hear this really awesome, super frenetic music, it reminds me a little bit, it looks like something that maybe like an old school like Scandinavian demo group could have done on something like the Commodore 64, but it has a bit more of a higher frame rate and music that sounds more conducive to something like the Amiga, you know, which came out later on, obviously, but which also had a very vibrant presence in the demo scene. And if you don't know what the demo scene was, essentially what that is, it technically still exists to a certain degree, but it was a group of people who used to put together, they were these super ninja coders and artists and musicians and things like that. And what they used to do is they used to, principally in the 90s, they used to have these conventions where they would get together and try to see what they can make these old school computer platforms do technically. They used to do these absolutely incredible technical feats that were, you would look at them and go, how the hell did you make a C64 or an Amiga or whatever do that? And it was really impressive stuff, and they always gave it away for free, and it was mostly just to show, you know, what elite coders they were. And they often sometimes made games, and they would, you'd often see stuff kind of like this that had that feel to it, which is what really attracted me to it. And it's a game that is, well, like many a thing I've talked about lately, it is bloody hard. It is incredibly rock hard. This game is a roguelite. Actually a roguelike, I apologize. It is run-based. You've got to if you're going to finish it, you got to finish the whole thing in one go, and there's no persistent upgrades. That's why it is not a roguelite, because there are no upgrades you can purchase that persist between runs. Everything you buy is for the current game session that you're in, and you buy those from in-game shops, which I might see, I might not. And as you can see, it is this very heavy combat-focused idea. You're just doing, you're trying to really combo through enemies as fast as you can, and you're going through these multiple different screens, and you have no map or anything like that, but it's generally fairly easy to find your way through a level. The levels, each individual level is not super long. You'll do a couple of levels in an area followed by a boss fight, and the levels are randomly generated. Each new run, you'll get into a different area, sometimes with a different tile set, and you won't always fight the bosses in the same order. I've only beaten one boss in this game so far, but I did get to another one, and even though it was at the end of the first level, it was still a completely different boss I got to, so it does mix things up. It's very non-linear in that respect, which is very nice. So here's a shop here. Now, if you were looking at the combat tutorial, you might have seen at the top there you have those 3 gems. So those gems are your attacks, and you can, as you can see here, you can string attacks together, but you'll burn your gems quickly when you do that, and they do auto-regenerate over time. Now, when you go to a shop, what you can do is you can spend money, and you see here there's different kinds of, each of these different gems represents a different kind of attack, and you can buy more than one if you got the funds. And this is where the combat system gets a little interesting, because you can buy something like, say, this, and you see you're replacing a gem with it. So you can make it your first, second, or third attack. It's always going to be in that position. So say if I make this guy the second attack, I got to go through the first one, and then, and the quick draw basically is just an attack where there's not as much wind up. So you have to, and this is the triple attack, so, oh shoot, I burned all the money. Dang it. And it will, that particular attack will only trigger when you get to that point in your combo sequence. So it's something you've had to be very cognizant of. You cannot rearrange these after you've purchased your new attack. So you assign it to a gem, but you can't reassign it outside of the shop. In fact, you can't even reassign it in the shop. Once you've purchased and committed it to a slot, that's where it lives until you replace it later. So this is a game that definitely requires some amount of planning and some amount of commitment. It does not reward mistakes. It's definitely, you know, it's going to be like, listen, okay, so I'm at the end of the level here. At the end of each level, you have a little story interactable like this. These change as well. I don't know if they're randomly generated or not. So far, it just kind of seems like gibberish to me. It doesn't really make much sense. Also, I'm at full health, but if I wasn't, you would have that. So now we're back in the fungi fortress in the mushroom caverns, and here we go. So yeah, it's the idea of this. Oh, there was a nice combo. Oh, I don't always get a lot of those. So the only achievement I've gotten in this game so far is for actually clearing a room in one combo that was greater than 5 times, which was kind of cool. I only did that once, and I have to say, when you can land a combo like that, you definitely get that visceral yeah feeling out of it, which is pretty great. This game definitely rewards a lot of things like that, but at the same time, as I said, this is a game that is very punishing. It doesn't reward failure, it doesn't reward screw-ups, and it demands a lot of you. The basic systems are very easy to pick up, but mastering those combos can be very tricky. The problem with it, and this definitely has to do with its sort of random nature, is that sometimes you can find yourself a little bit screwed, where you've got a lot of enemies around that are not lined up in a way that's conducive to a good combo, kind of like what just happened there, if you noticed. And what will happen is you can find yourself in a position where you think you're going to line up a combo with a bunch of different enemies, and you don't pull it off, and then all of a sudden you're surrounded by a couple of different guys, and you're out of gems, and you're like, oh god, oh god, oh god, oh god, and you got to kind of run around for a few seconds to try to not get hit while you wait for your gems to recharge. Now, this game is not super mean when it comes to health. Like, some roguelike games are very bad about that. They either never give you additional health during the course of your run, or it's infrequent. Yeah, okay, I don't know what that means. So we're in a library here. In addition, there are some challenge rooms that you will come across as well. Rooms where it's just like, complete this room without taking damage, or complete this room while meeting some other condition, and you get trinkets for that. There are things called trinkets that actually, you know what, I said this was this had no persistent progression. It's not entirely true. It kind of does. There are these things called trinkets that you can pick up, and I don't know if they actually do anything because I haven't gotten very many of them, but you get them for completing challenge rooms. And you can also change things like the color of your scarf that I have here. It starts off as red. I changed it to this gold color. I'll show you that after, though. Let's see here. Contains a quick draw. That attack is not so great. The homing attack is very nice. I very much like this, so I'm going to put that in here. That is a very good way to start a combo off. It will basically automatically pull you towards the closest enemy when you use it. It's quite nice. So actually, that wasn't a first attack. That was the last attack, as it starts from the right. GG, Parallax. All right, there we go. So, see, that helps a lot. And that's the thing. As you progress in this, you do, and you line yourself up with the gems that you want, you do definitely get more powerful. It's kind of a catch-22, right? This is a game that definitely starts off, a lot of games start off easy and get harder. This game actually, I would say, starts off pretty hard, and it's because until you get some more gems purchased and get them lined up the way you want, things can definitely be pretty tricky, but then get easier as you go. And it's a little bit of a reverse psychology, but it is cool in its own way, right? So here we go. Here's a different thing. I might manage to get to a boss in this run. We'll see what happens if I can show you that. So, but yeah, the combo system. The two major problems I have with this is the fact that because of the way the enemy layouts work, sometimes you will find yourself blowing a combo that you really thought you got right, and then you're in a position where you're surrounded by enemies and have to either freak out to try to avoid taking a hit, or just end up sucking it up and taking a hit, kind of like that, while you're waiting for your gems to recharge. And that's a much bigger problem earlier on. When you manage to achieve stuff like homing gems and things like that, like I have now, it's definitely easier because you can be more certain that you're going to land that combo that you want. So there's a little bit of a complaint there. Really, though, that is a case of just getting, practicing and learning how to min-max your combos and put together the best gem balance for you. This is a game that's going to require a lot of retrying and a lot of practice if you want to get good at it, and there's nothing wrong with that, certainly not. Another bit of a gripe I have is the enemy AI is incredibly inconsistent. A lot of the enemies, they have very predictable standard behaviors, like a lot of these sort of pseudo-humanoid ninja guys. Once they take notice of you, they tend to do the same thing. They'll jump at you or run towards you or whatever, but then if you, say, jump up a level, they'll oftentimes just sit and run against the wall, or they kind of won't be able to pathfind their way to you, even though you're sort of right there, which is kind of frustrating. I mean, it does make them a little easier to manage, yes, but at the same time, you're also like, well, okay, but you guys are, you're kind of dumb, and I don't necessarily know if that was the focus. I mean, it's about quick combat. It's about clearing a lot of rooms very rapidly. So that may have been their intent, was not to have super brilliant AI. And if they did, maybe it just would have made it too hard. But you can sort of see the seams of it, if you will. You can sort of see the fact that these guys are not terribly bright. And you're kind of like, all right, am I fighting humans or just weird, badly programmed robots or something? It's a little strange. The other thing is that because, and this I don't necessarily count as a strike against the game, because it is very much in keeping with the roguelike formula, is that because everything is randomly generated, it's just plain unfair sometimes in terms of the way the world is laid out. You saw there before that I was in 2 screens that both had shops in them, shops very close together. I've had multiple entire levels before where I've never come across a shop, which, given how important it is to build up a good stack of powerful gems early in the game in order to, make your run a little more manageable, it's really kind of a pain when you're like, I'm barely hanging on here. I really need to spend some money and get some better attacks, and you don't find a shop for 3 levels, and then you find 2 shops stacked right on top of each other. You're like, really? You guys have, could I not find anything, and then I came across the outlet mall suddenly? That's kind of a bummer and kind of frustrating. Now, like I said, roguelikes are very much about RNG, and the simple fact is a proper roguelike is frequently unfair, and that's kind of the known quantity, the known caveat of playing this genre. And it's very much one of those things like, hey, if you don't want a game that's just going to be a douche sometimes, this is probably not a genre for you. Oh, here we go. Here's the boss. So yeah, I fought this boss before. Like that little Mega Man style intro there. These guys kind of beat the snot out of me last time. I can't guarantee that's not going to happen this time, especially when they whip out the fireballs, but I am way better stacked up gem-wise than I was before. I presume, I don't know if I have to take them both out at once, or if I can take out one and then only fight one more. Oh, I got him! Sweet! Fungal Fantasy 7. Oh, yeah. It's a rare pleasure when I can take out a boss that I hadn't managed to beat before and do it on a video. I love the soundtrack for this, too. It is so high energy and so visceral. It's great. Health increase. I'll take it. All right. So we doing good, and then I think this just heads out. Listen to this music. It's just... Again, this sort of high-paced, super high BPM electronic type stuff. This is the kind of thing you used to see in demo scene productions back in the day. I don't know. I don't know much about Super God. This is their first game. I don't know if maybe these guys have roots in that. I have no idea. But it's interesting that you're playing this sort of weird sort of samurai environment thing with this really high BPM electronica going. But I like it. It really keeps you psyched up and really it's sort of into the groove of things. I definitely dig that. And yeah, as I said at the beginning, this has a very... The art style is very Downwell-esque. I mean, Downwell was one of my favorite games of that year, and this has a really nice striking style as well. I mean, this plays nothing like it, to be sure, But yeah, it's got this sort of... It's largely black and white. There's only certain accent colors, which is principally the blood and your customizable scarf color. But other than that, it's black and white, very chunky pixel art type thing, you know, and I dig that a lot. Let's see, what's this one? The saw attack, which I can't afford by just a hair, which sucks. The triple attack is handy. Let's replace that one. All right. And we're right back into it. Musical transitions are a little sharp, perhaps, but that's okay. I don't mind that. But you can see here, now that I've gotten sort of juiced up a little bit, I'm definitely doing much better. See, and now there's another shop really close together, like really, and also he has two of the same gem here. Now that's not unusual either, but and you obviously you can buy more than one if you really like a particular kind of attack. You can buy more than one and stack them, which is always helpful as well. But it's very roguelike-ish in that sense. It is very random, and sometimes the randomness will play to your favor. Sometimes it will just be a complete dick and go, yeah, no, I'm just going to make this arbitrarily hard for you because that's what I do. And you got to be into that. But at the same time, what's really nice about this game is it's cheap. It's when it's on full price, which as time of recording, it's on a launch discount, but it's only $6 US. You know, they're not charging a lot for this. This is ultimately at its core a fairly simple game. There's, you know, there is depth to the combat and whatnot, but it has a very narrow focus, and they wanted to make basically a roguelike with fast-paced ninja combat, and they definitely did that. But there's not a huge amount of depth to it. Once you learn the combat system, it's not going to be... You know, the story, maybe there's one that comes out later, but so far it seems pretty nonsensical. But that, I don't really care about that. That's not really what I'm into this for anyway. But it feels like they were really trying to make almost like a little bit of a combination of like... It's kind of like Ninja Gaiden and Mega Man would be the best way I would describe it. And I think they did that pretty well. I've been having fun with this when it's, you know, sometimes I will fire it up and the game will just be super mean 2 or 3 runs in a row and I'm like, screw this, and I quit. But then I come back later and I put a little bit of more time into it and I have a couple of good runs and I'm like, yeah, all right, I feel good about that. Will I ever finish this? I don't know, because there's a number of different environments in it, and like I said, there ain't no save. Once this run is over, I got to do all of it again. You know, it won't go, hey, you finished the mushroom area, and now you can just hit continue and skip that. Oh no. There is also a hard mode and a new game plus mode in this as well. So needless to say, if you want to put in the time, you can probably get a lot of playtime out of this sucker. If you really want to do that. But it's designed for people who are either very good at this kind of game or are willing to persist and practice and fail a whole bunch to get 1 or 2 good successes out of it. I'm very glad that we're seeing more and more games like that lately. I'm very glad that, you know, people have... Even if it's not the mainstream, that people have realized that these kinds of games that are extremely, extremely hard and even sometimes borderline unfair can still be a lot of fun and still can be incredibly rewarding to those who are willing to put in the time. They're not all about instant gratification like so many other mainstream releases are these days. And hey, I like a lot of those mainstream releases. I love some good instant gratification sometimes, but it's also nice to feel like to play something that feels like it really is demanding a lot of you, but will reward you for it if you're willing to work with it. And that's definitely what this is. This feels like a throwback in a good kind of way. Very old school design methodology. It's, hey, let's make something that's not overly complicated, but that can still provide a lot of time and value, because within its relatively simple systems is a lot of demanding depth. Which is something I very much appreciate. I think these guys nailed that idea. This is a game that I absolutely could have seen come out on something like the Commodore 64 or the Amiga, or even in the old DOS days, you know, something like that. I could definitely have seen that, and it's not... What is this? Okay, hey, we found a challenge room. I've not seen this one before. Reach the goal without getting caught by the dragons. Oh, good God almighty. This is gonna suck! Oh yeah, by the way, it's just a challenge. It is a challenge room, but it will still kill you. It's not like a thing where if you fail the challenge, you don't take any damage, and it's like, okay, go back into the world. It's like, nah, you die. Yeah. So here's the unlockables here. So there's, as you can see, there's different colors. I still think amber is the coolest, so I'm going to do that. I don't know what pets are. I haven't unlocked any yet, as you can see. It looks like there's a few of them. I'm not sure if they're just... I think most of these things are just aesthetic. I don't think they actually do anything for you. So yeah, trinkets I've got here. See, you can't actually select these. So yeah, this is the stuff that persists between runs, but at least as far as I can tell, this actually doesn't bring any substantive gameplay benefits. So this is still very much a proper roguelike. It definitely, you got to be willing to do stuff in one run. The only other thing is here, as you can see, you can rebind your keys. You can play this with the keyboard if you want. I'm playing with an Xbox One controller. I find it a little bit better that way, but either way is doable. There's very limited options, as you can see. This is a 2D game, but there's no resolution option, which I kind of wish there was. But it will probably run fine at any resolution because it doesn't need 3D acceleration, so that's okay. And yes, you can rebind your controls if you want, gamepad and keyboard, which I like. Very cool. So as you can see here, there's not a lot of commands to it, so it's relatively easy to do. And yeah, there is normal mode, there's hard mode. There is also an intro, which is kind of cool, though oddly enough, there's no sound in it, which I do find kind of odd. Given the amount of cool music that there is in this game, you would have thought they would have had some of that, but, you know, whatever. But again, this looks very much like something you would have had on a Commodore 64, you know, static scene with that's not animating, but it's sliding like this for a little bit of dramatic effect. It's really good pixel art, though. You know, it's black and white, but it's very striking, and I quite like what they did with it. So, yeah, I've been having a lot of fun with this. You know, it's basic in its mechanics, and it will demand a lot of you. If you don't want something that's super hard, then this is probably not going to do it for you. I do wish the combat system was a little bit more refined, and I do wish the level generation was, frankly, a little more fair than it actually is. But, you know, it is a roguelike and adhering to those tenets, so, you know, that's part of the package if you want that kind of thing. But it's also cheap. You know, it's only $6 US. It doesn't require a large investment to get in, and it's something much like Downwell that you could, you know, you'll keep coming back to. You'll play a little bit here, a little bit there. You'll come back to it some more, and you know, I have a little bit of a good time with it each time. It's not a game you're gonna play for hours at a time, but when you do put time into it, you'll have a good one, I think. So yeah, I've been enjoying this quite a bit, and I'll keep plugging away at it. We'll see where I can get to. Thanks for watching, everybody. If you liked what you saw here, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel. That does help me out a great deal. If you want to watch something else, check out the videos on screen now, and don't forget to follow @PXA Media on Twitter to find out about new stuff first.